Hey, it's Adam, your internet chess coach. This game is part of a segment of a full analysis video. If you want the full video, click the link below. Otherwise, stay tuned and watch this just single game. But defended really well. Okay, last game, let's see what happens. Black plays Sicilian. Get a similar game previously, but now white switches with d4. Hikaru going for e6. Queenside castles. Lots of pressure on Black's position. How does Black develop his pieces? I'm really curious. Maybe bishop c5. He goes knight f6, which allows e5. Now where does the knight go? He doesn't go anywhere. He simply creates a counterattack of pawn takes, pawn takes. Wow. Takes, takes, and pawn takes. Yeah, pawn takes on f6. And maybe bishop g7 and castles. Maybe bishop a3. But I think d5 should be played. If you can get f5 in, it'd be great, but the rook on h8 is hanging. Okay, knight f3. Maybe he just attacks. Excuse me. Bishop d3 makes sense. Bishop e2 is taking a lot of time here. Bishop e2 makes sense as well. He sacks? Oh, what a tactic. You can't take, so he takes the pawn, and the d7 pawn was hanging. Hikaru goes knight b4. Pawn d5 makes a lot of sense here. Oh wait, the bishop's hanging, so bishop takes, takes, and then d5. Yeah, bishop takes, takes d5. Bishop takes. Hikaru's thinking. He's calculating. The g2 pawn is also a bit weak. The rook on h8's hanging. If you don't take, he takes on a2. And then d5. Wow. Simplifies the position. Okay, queen f6 is coming. Queen b6 is coming. Now the knight can come to c3. Just take the rook. What is this? Take the rook. You're up material. How to defend here? Your rook on h8's out of the game. White has a very stable position on his king's side. Hikaru activates the rook on the 7th rank. Still very tricky to defend here. He goes rook to e7, securing his king. And rook to f8. The h7 pawn is hanging. To take, take. Bishop takes h7. What is he thinking here? Queen to f6. Hikaru activates his bishop. You could take that. But then, yeah, you could take it. What, e5 is he going to play? Oh, no, you can't e5 because the queen's hanging. Is he going to sack? Is he going to take? Rook to queen e5. What does this do? f6, grabbing some space for his king. And now e5, and you're trading off the queens, moving the rook to safety. White has a lot of pawns here on the queen side. c4 loses to rook g2. Okay, you can take, and you can't take because of bishop c4, but maybe you take anyways. And just go like king e7. He doesn't take, he goes f5. He activates the pawn majority. Okay, you're threatening checkmate here. Hikaru avoids it. Nice defensive move. Pawn is hanging. Rook takes. Again, bishop c4. He doesn't give away material. Pawn h5. Wow. Now the pawn on e6 is hanging. Yep, completely winning. Completely winning. Just queen. His opponent resigns the game. Okay, really, really amazing game. Last game of today. Let's see. Hikaru with the black pieces. We get e4, c5. Let's turn the engine on. And against the closest ceiling, Hikaru goes for a6. Very small sideline here. 7% of the database is played. d4 takes. Knight c6. Queen d2. e6. b3. And b5. Bishop b2. Bishop b7. Castles. And rook c8. Hikaru's king is stuck in the center. And he hasn't developed his king side, but he has a slight advantage if he plays knight to b4. Just temporarily stopping the knight from ever moving because of takes, and if a3, maybe the the queen side is weakening a bit because the knight will move, and then b4 gets hit. Actually, no, engine says something different. You could bring the knight back, but black gets the advantage after takes, check, king b2 or king b1. King b1 says slightly better. Takes, and take on e4. The a3 pawn is not hanging at the moment because of queen takes g7, but maybe you can do it anyways because queen f6. It says black has the advantage. And white's up a rook. Excuse me. Black has a piece and a pawn. Okay, quite interesting. Knight f6. Now white has the advantage. e5, b4. I was very surprised by the move knight f6 because it ran into e5. But Hikaru saw that after e5 you can play b4 winning a tempo, and if the knight moves, for example, to e4, which did not happen in the game, you just take it, knight hasn't moved yet, and if you take here, which happened in the game, Hikaru is getting some development. So his timing of this defensive move, knight f6, you don't usually want to play knight f6 if you get hit with e5, but he has a counter shot with b4. Again, the engine says better move is knight b4, going for the sack, and if you go like bishop d3 defending, you could take the bishop, alleviating some pressure, and then knight f6. This diagonal's open now. Queen doesn't defend g2. Knight f6, b4 takes, bishop takes. This was a key moment. Bishop takes was very surprising, but you cannot take back because of the checkmate. So black loses a pawn with this entire sequence, and black is still completely fine. He doesn't take, he finds a nice tactic knight b4. If you take, then rook takes, and bishop to e4 check, bishop t3, and bishop takes g2. And if king moves to like b2, then queen f6 wins. And if king d2, king, you don't want to do this, king's in the center. And you also lose material like this, but you get material back with the queen on the board. It's going to be very difficult to do. So a very strong idea, knight b4 here. Bishop c4, knight takes, bishop takes, d5, knight to c3, and I'm very surprised he went knight f3 here. You could just move the rook, but then you get hit with queen f6. So this knight being installed is absolutely deadly. The rook moves anywhere to safety. Actually, rook e1 was fine, just not lining up with this diagonal. And if you go queen f6, then rook to e5 is played. So going down material, not necessary here. It says white is fine, but black again being up material can sack back material. This is the problem. Rook to c7. White has an edge here, by the way, so I don't dismiss this as white, but I think that you have to play it extremely well here. He plays it, f5, rook to e7, queen to g5. He has an advantage here, rook to f8, queen to f6, d4 activating. The bishop giving away material, knight takes, bishop takes, and now black has an edge with f6. Okay, so white had, I think, a very strong idea, and I would love to be able to play like this, just sacking material, going black into a very passive position, but how should he have played instead? After you take the correct move, I think is really tough to find. What's even the idea of this bishop e2? We're blocking the rook. Maybe it's to add pressure to the e6 pawn. Bishop d5. Best move is rook a1. Okay. Let's say bishop b7, which I don't think is good at all, but let's see. Then rook d1. Bishop d5, we take. If takes, then check. And the rook is lost. You have to sack the rook back. So takes. Computer says queen d8. But the king is completely open here after taking. Rook on f takes. And bishop h5. And black is lost. Completely lost. So what did white do incorrectly? I think maybe he rushed it. He was trying to find a killer blow, and he just had to see he has a better position. Black is completely stuck in a zugzwang, and the correct approach here is finding this maneuver to then capture at the right moment, taking advantage of the pin. So he missed this key idea, bishop e2, bishop h5, keeping the position stable. And this allows Hikaru just one opportunity to activate his rooks, get some space, and play e5. The attack on the king is non-existent now at the moment. Knight e6, queen trades. Yeah, no more attack against the king, but I like the way white continued to press. He wins the pawn. Bishop attacks the knight. He takes, and now you don't take the rook because take with the rook because of bishop c4. Even here, black is better because of his connected passed pawns. But Hikaru doesn't like giving away material if not needed. He goes king f8, best move. Checkmate is threatened. He sidesteps with the king. King to f8, rook c5. White manages to get a pawn back, but was down on time. Okay. Pawn f4. Rook f8, getting behind the pawn. f3. Hikaru pushes pawns when he can. I've noticed this many times. If he has an advanced pawn, he really uses it to great effect, putting the opponent on defense. And it looks really much in black's favor now. His pawns advanced so much. In the meantime, white hasn't even started. King c3, king e4. Not king f4 because of king d4, and white is able to dominate the black king. So king to e4, king d2, rook d8, king f4. I actually think bishop d3 was Missed by Hikaru, maybe, because it... Maybe not, maybe not. Of course, it's easy to say, but... Yeah, maybe not, actually, in this case. Rook d8, bishop d3, and king has to go to f4. Pawn on e6 is hanging. b4, rook takes, b5, blocks the pawns. I don't think he had to block the pawn here at all. He decides to, but he could have gone, like, maybe rook here and here. Okay, best move is just h5. Very computer move, like. The rook still stops the pawns. If pawn push, then the bishop is lost. Rook b6. Now the king invades. It's completely over. He sacks, wins a pawn, and pawn pushing is too much for white. Rook can block f5. Okay, really wild game. Really wild game. Let's take a look at our analysis. Last thing for today. Hikaru as black. We have a Sicilian with c5 and a6 again. Same as game number 3. Okay, main reason for win. Hikaru successfully defended. A very strong opening attack with knight b4 and creating counterplay. And he defended and took his chance to play f6, e5. Okay, main reason for loss is white didn't find the right idea to keep black completely restricted. Spell that correctly. To keep black completely restricted, and the correct maneuver spelling I'll fix after. Correct maneuver was bishop e2 and bishop h5. Okay, and I'm spelling things wrong, but that's okay. I'll fix that later. Correct maneuver, bishop e2, bishop h5. White also didn't have to go down material. But what I find interesting, I'll put that in notes, didn't have to go material, but did anyways. What I find interesting is that even down material, white had the edge. Black was discoordinated, not coordinated. And white could have had an overwhelming advantage with finding the right idea. I wouldn't say perfect play, I'd say finding the right idea. Okay, let's